everybody, it's Lucky and welcome back to my channel. And like the video suggests, I am deciding to start learning art from scratch. This will be a weekly upload of videos where I show my art progress and what I'm planning to do for the week. So without further ado, let's get started. And the first thing we'll be covering this week is shapes, because everything is made up of shapes, so best place to start is through looking at all the basic shapes. On Monday I decided I'm going to start with circles, and I wanted to find like an image that I can reference and copy off of to to draw circles from different angles and perspectives. And my original idea for this series was that I was going to record everything on my phone while I drew on IBS Paint, but I completely forgot that my phone is quite small, so I can barely see anything on it, and as a result I couldn't see half of the things I was making. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm struggling quite a bit to get the proper shape of the spheres right, and also get all the proper lines of it. So for the first couple of spheres it was quite difficult for me to get the grasp of everything, since this is the first time I've used IBS Paint to practice. Usually I just make small doodles on it, or just get rid of backgrounds from images that I need from different videos. So it was definitely a challenge. I didn't know I was going to be challenged this quickly into the series, but hey, we listen and we don't judge. It doesn't help much that I'm also just using my finger. I don't have a stylus or a pen that I can use with my phone, so my fat fingers are in the way half the time, so I can't tell what I'm drawing until after I move my finger away and actually see it from this, and actually see the picture in its full finished version. I thought to myself, I already started it, I might as well finish it and see how it works out. And looking back on the recording, it didn't look like I was doing that poorly. I mean, yes, you can see that some of the circles aren't really circles, they're more like ovals than anything else. Still, it looks a lot better than how I remember it being in the beginning. The image I'm using as a reference actually has all these different circles and different perspectives depending on where the lines are positioned, which I find very interesting because I could relearn how to draw circles while also learning different perspectives. Along with learning how to redraw shapes, I also wanted to learn how to shade, depending on where the lighting is, which is something I don't think I ever really truly learned how to do. Even when I was in school and learning art, I just kind of estimated where the shadows would be depending on where the light hit the object. So I thought, hey, if I'm doing shapes, I might as well finally learn how to shade. And another thing I don't know how to do on IBS Paint is shade objects. I probably should have looked this up before starting to do this video, but hey, maybe it can be another episode in the series where I learn how to draw, and that episode will be called Learning How to Shade in IBS, or Learning How IBS Paint Works. However, it's a little bit late to be wishing for that since I've already started recording the video, but at the time I thought it looked quite bad, especially since I wasn't using a thick enough brush, so I kept going over it, so it just kind of looked black. It didn't look much like shading in the end. And as I kept drawing, I just became more and more frustrated because I didn't know how to make it look better, and I was just wishing, man, I really wish that I just did this in my sketchbook, which would have been much easier. Not that I know how to shade much better with a pencil, but it would have looked somewhat more decent than what I had in IBS Paint. Despite me not being fully satisfied with how it looked, I told myself I'm not really going to be satisfied with anything that I make the start of my art journey, so I might just embrace the good, the bad, and the ugly and power through it. I did try to find an image that would help me understand how light hit a spherical object, but I couldn't find anything on the internet, so in the end I had to estimate. But in the future I most likely will find a tennis ball and a flashlight and light the tennis ball myself from different angles to see how the light would affect the tennis ball in all the different angles. So lesson learned, if you can't find it on the internet, you can just do it yourself at home. And with this last one, my first day is finished, and as you can see I decided to break out the sketchbook anyways on the second day, since I was a bit too ambitious and starting to do digital art when I haven't even mastered drawing in a sketchbook. So the rest of the shapes are going to be drawn in my sketchbook. And for the second day I decided to do triangles, since triangles are the second easiest shape to draw. And if you notice me going over the same line a few times, it isn't because I was trying to define it more. I was trying to fix the line so it was where I wanted it to be. And the reason why I didn't use a eraser is because apparently I don't own an eraser. I literally looked everywhere in my room and I couldn't find one, and I was a bit too lazy to go downstairs and get one from the cabinet we have down there. So I decided, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to go over all the lines as many times as I need to. Since triangles have a more definitive shape than a circle does, it was a lot easier for me to determine, depending on where the light was hitting the triangle, where it would be more light and where there would be shadow casted on the triangle, at least at first. When it was just like, oh, there's light coming from the front, from the left or the right, it was quite simple. But when I had to move on to casting the shadow either from the very top or at the very bottom of the triangle, it was quite difficult to determine. I kind of went back to my circle drawings and determined based off of that how the lighting went. third day I decided to start practicing squares, and for squares it's kind of difficult for me to draw them because I always seem to have it like misshapen, like it never looks like a square unless it's like a flat unless it's like a flat square. Once I start drawing cubes they all look kind of wonky, and it doesn't matter what I try to do, I will always make them a bit misshapen. So it was very important to me that I practice drawing squares as much as possible because a lot of different objects are composed of different shaped squares and rectangles. So I actually on Friday I went back to this page and drew even more than I drew on Wednesday, just so I can practice more, since I still wasn't quite satisfied with how all my misshapen squares looked. And for the final day we're going to do cylinders, because other than triangles, circles, and squares, the other thing that a lot of objects are comprised of is cylinders, especially like the human body. When you're just breaking it down into shape, it's mostly composed of rectangles, squares, and cylinders, and some ovals as well, but it's basically more flat version of a cylinder. I was looking for reference pictures, I found this really cool reference sheet that showed the cylinders being bent and shaped out of place, so one end would be like skinnier than the front, or the front would be skinnier than the back, and there was one image that kind of looked like a slinky. So I was like, hey, this is technically cylinders, so I'm also going to add this to my sketchbook. And I think I had the most fun drawing these ones, despite my first attempt being quite not the best. But after I understood that first you need to draw the simplified shape before adding the definition lines, then I finally got the hang of it. As for the shading portion of it, I think I had the most difficulty since I really couldn't find anything to help me understand where shadows would be on a cylinder-shaped object depending on where the light hit it, and so in the end I had to just guesstimate where it would hit, which isn't the best thing to do if you're trying to learn how to do art, but I didn't really have any idea how I could find something that would help me understand how to shade a cylinder properly until now. When I think about it, I actually have a Pringle can in my room, which I could have used by putting a flashlight on it and seeing where shadows were casted on it. But I did find a semi-decent reference image I used in the end, so it wasn't too awful at the end. And here are the final results. I have to say, while they aren't the best and I'm not entirely sure about the shading, it still turned out better than I thought it would, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope you join me as I go on the journey of learning how to draw again. This is all for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, Lucky out.